Hey guys, I just want to do a very brief introduction before we get stuck into the interview. This is a conversation with Sephton Henry. Sephton is an ex-gang member, but now he's a political advisor, advisor to the Metropolitan Police, and he's a mentor to many kids across London. Like many people who I've interviewed previously, Sephton has some really forward-thinking ideas when it comes to the prison system, rehabilitation, role models, or the lack of role models currently in our society. I often get a couple of questions from my mates asking, am I scared, when I interview kind of ex-gang members? And the answer is no. These people have the biggest hearts in society. People like Sephton, Nakila, Gideon, Sheldon Thomas, people who I've previously interviewed, who most people ordinarily would be afraid of if they just read up on the internet who these guys are and what their past history is. But their experience has shaped them into really powerful people who are real role models in their communities and pillars of our society. So I hope you enjoy this one with Sephton. It's a good one. Sephton, reading up about your story, you've been to prison 7 times, you've been stabbed, and you advise the Metropolitan Police and also other political spheres. What was it like being a teenager as Sephton?
What was it like being a teenager? So by the time I was 8, I was selling drugs for the older boys. So by the time I was 12, 13, I was heavily hooked on drugs. And I was looking at a prison sentence.
How did that start at 8 years old?
So at 8 years old, the older boys used to tell me to go and take this down the road to some guy down the road, but I didn't know what it was I was taking until one day a guy OD'd and like white foam was coming out of his mouth. And as it was coming out of his mouth, I was shook. I was scared. I was thinking, what's going on? Like, is this what I'm doing? Like, why am I doing this? But not knowing. So the older boys, they would tell me to go and take these things down the road to give to some guy. But then one day I saw the guy ODing on the floor from the very same thing that I was giving to those older guys down the road. And I realized, like I'm doing something bad. I didn't even know it was bad. As time went on, they would, give me sweets and, praise me for doing bad things. They'll say, oh, have a fight with this guy, or, throw a stone at this, or they would just tell me to do little things and I'd get praised for it. And I feel like that's what kind of boosted me up a little bit.
Sephton, in your experience, what do you think is wrong with the prison system? Prison is supposed to be a place where people are rehabilitated and they come out the other side, they're able to contribute to society. What do you think the prison system is currently lacking in helping people to contribute to society and reintegrate properly?
So prisons are lacking with rehabilitation. They can incarcerate someone, they can punish someone, they can judge someone, but they're not disciplining them. They're not guiding them into the right way. They're not rehabilitating them. Once they're in prison for what? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And then they come out. I starred in a program, a documentary on BBC One. It was called Banged Up and Left to Foul. And I believe that sums it up. Many young people, older people, whoever goes into prison, they tend to be banged up and then left.
What type of rehabilitation program did you experience? Did you experience any at all?
No.
No?
I didn't experience any rehabilitation while I was in prison. I think the rehabilitation that I got was being in prison. I know that's a catch for you, but look, the rehabilitation I got was me actually being in prison. So me being in prison, it was like that time away from the world was the only thing of rehabilitation. But guess what? It's not really, because think about it. Being away for that long and not dealt with the true issues, the internal, what was going on internal. So on the external, I was away from the gang for that year, that 2 years, that 3 years. I was away from the knives for 3 years. I was away from, crime for 3 years. But the internal issues stayed with me for those 3 years and got worse because they was never dealt with.
Okay, so what you're saying there is, during your time in prison, you did your own internal work to rehabilitate yourself rather than help being provided to you.
100%. So I found myself doing a lot of self-development. I learned how to read by reading the Bible. I learned how to write. I learned how to do so many things that I didn't know how to do while I was in prison. But as much as I was learning those things, there was still internal issues that I couldn't deal with. I didn't have the right resources and the different things that I needed, if that makes sense.
What type of resources would have benefited you at that time?
I believe if I had a mentor and if I had counseling, even a psychiatrist, you got to understand that many young people or older people in gangs, in that lifestyle, they suffer with PTSD. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. So these are issues that are underlined that are not so simple to just, put under the cover or whatever. You've got to really have therapy.
When you were in prison, how did you see your peers, your other inmates? Were these guys doing their self-work, which you were doing as well, or could you just see people spiraling?
So remember, I've been to prison 7 times. So I've been to Rochester prison, I've been to ISIS prison, I've been to Felton prison, I've been to Brixton prison, I've been to Aylesbury Bucks Lifers prison. And different times I was doing different things. So maybe the first time I was a bit like, oh, what is this? This is new to me. The second time, I'm going to kill everybody. The third time, I'm going to kill more people. The fourth time, I'm really angry now. There's consequences to people's actions. So when the judge tells me 3 years, I think to myself, okay, I'll get out. I'll get out one day. So different sentences, I was doing different things, but I think on the 5th sentence to the 6th sentence, I started to kind of want to change. Do you get what I mean? And that's when the self-development started to kick in. So to tell the truth, most people that's in prison, they're not really doing no self-development. They're just angry.
What was the type of self-development you were getting your headspace into? What were some things you were thinking about? What were your ambitions?
So I didn't have no ambitions. I didn't have anything. All I had was pretty much emptiness. But I think the self-development that I started with, it was more, I'm not going to continue in a destructive way. Does that make sense? That was the only thing that I kind of had. I didn't want to be destructive how I was before. I didn't want to be as reckless as I was before. Reckless behavior, for me, I'd do anything. Like, I'd just run up on someone. Like, just, that's normal. That was a normal day. If I robbed 5 people, I was upset. I was like, oh, I didn't get enough, kind of thing. So I feel like my self-development at that time, it was just warped because I was so entrenched in that life.
How old were you at this time? Were we talking early 20s?
Yeah, so I was around 18, 19, 20, 21.
Did you have any positive role models? Is there kind of one person you can say, this person really helped me out, he put me on the right tracks? Did you have multiple?
So I had two people. One was Ethan, he's my mentor. And then two was Sheldon Thomas, who's my manager.
What type of lessons were they teaching you?
So with my mentor, Ethan, like, he would teach me skills, like normal skills and behavioral, like how to handle things and stuff like that. And for me, I didn't really have that, you know. I never had no one to teach me simple things. So I would say on that side. And then for him, I'd listen to him. I didn't listen to other people. He was the only person I ever listened to. And then my second mentor, Sheldon Thomas, he taught me more of the business and management, and also how to be a man, like a real man, you know what I mean? Not like trying to be a gangster or, you know, and all those sort of things.
What was it about these two individuals that made you listen to them?
Well, Ethan, he came on my block. He came on my block with a studio van, and the van had a studio inside it, but I didn't know at the time. I just saw this black van, and I'm just thinking, yo, I need to run up on this van or something. As I walked over, I saw the speakers on the van, and I was like, okay, what's this? This is different. Anyway, when I went over there, he said, oh, do you want to use it? Like the studio that's on the van. I was like, what? Like, you're going to let me do that, yeah? He was like, yeah. I was like, all right. So I went in there and I started spitting some bars. But the bars that I was spitting was about my friend that got shot in his head. And then Ethan told me about his friend that got murdered. And straight away, there was a connection. We started to build a relationship through that. And then as we built a relationship, that's how it all started. Sheldon's one. I said to him, yo, you need to mentor me. And I was at a conference, I was at some place. And he kind of heard it, but I don't know if he heard it the way that I wanted him to hear it. But in my head, I was like, he's going to see me. And then one day I got a call and I was so surprised. And it was him. And he was like, yeah, I got some work for you. Do you want to come? And just to have an older man put you on, an older man take you under his wing, an older man to educate you is a massive thing for a young boy. Do you get what I mean? You got to understand, like, absent fathers is a massive thing or a massive driving force for why young people get into gangs in the first place. So I would say having Sheldon there as a father figure was amazing, and it really blessed me.
Yeah, it worked out well with Sheldon because you ended up working with Sheldon on Gangsline. Can you explain a little bit what you guys did at Gangsline and what it's all about?
Okay, so yeah, so what we would do, we'd go into schools and we'd do crime prevention. And literally, when we'd go into the schools, the teachers would say to us like, oh, there's really bad kids. Like, they're really bad. Are you sure you're ready for this? And so on. And I was just like, I look at Sheldon and I just say, they don't know who they got here. So anyway, we'd go into the assembly and then they'd all be shouting and all these different things. And then I'll say like 3 words. Then all of a sudden, you hear a pin drop. And all the kids are silent and they're just on the edge of their seats listening to what I'm saying. And then by the end of it, they're all coming up to me, shaking my hand and, you know, really looking up to me, because it's weird. It's so weird that young people look up to badness. Like, they like it. It makes them get excited. They what's the word? It's like they're seeking validation from someone like me. They want someone like me to say, yeah, what are you saying? And pat them on the head or say, you're the guy. And I think that's what a lot of young people are looking for. They're looking for an older boy to say, well done. You're the man. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And if you ain't the right one, so hear what I mean? If you ain't the right one, so say if you're now a bad boy on the roadside and now you're going to talk to this guy, you're going to groom him and he's going to listen, he's going to do everything that you say because he wants that validation.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a difference when you're speaking to these school kids in London versus other cities, other towns outside of London? Or are the problems kind of all the same?
So I've definitely seen a difference, but I've also seen a correlation as well, where the difference that I've seen is in London, it's more, how do I say this? Fierce. In other areas, it's more young. And what am I saying? So even when it's young, you can still end up getting into trouble or ending up dead. But in London, it's fierce. It's like you're gonna end up dead. It's not like you that's where they're going, like straight away, if that makes sense. But I also travel overseas, so I also see another side in America. As mad as it seems, people would say that America is worse, but I don't think they are. I think they're worse because they have guns. But even they say, what? You stab someone? You have to get close enough to stab someone. You have to go into their body. And I think that's where a lot of London boys are tapped. They are desensitized to violence. So they don't have what the young have, or even the ones in America.
So when it comes to London, young kids and what's kind of happening on our streets today, I look at this and there's a couple of parts. There's lack of positive role models when you're a teenager, the quality of the schools, policies implemented by the government. What do you see are like the biggest issues? What are the biggest levers we can pull to really get people on the right tracks at a young age?
Okay, so for me, the biggest one that's needed, the main thing that's needed, is that I need to see me in those places of power. If I don't see me in those places of power, then why should I come into that? You got to understand that what we've done is we've made our own world. So you got to understand that these young kids are a byproduct of me. They're a byproduct of the one before me, and they're a byproduct of the one before me, and then the one before him. So what are we saying? What was the struggle of all of these? And then it's going to be passed down. So my thing is this: unless I see me in places of power, then I'm not going to come into that other world. I'm going to stay in my world where I've got the power, where I've got the strength. And what do I mean by power? I'm talking about I need to see people making decisions, CEOs, being somebody, not just a partaker.
Yeah, I think a big piece of this is you've done work with the Met Police. There's always been lots of tension between the Met Police and different communities in boroughs of London. What are the Met Police missing when tackling these communities and trying to create some rapport?
So one of the main things I believe the Met Police are missing out on is the on-the-beat police officers. But these on the beat police officers should be ones that are highly equipped in mentorship. They should be relational. Now, we understand that they're law enforcement. So law enforcement is to enforce the law. You see what I mean? And when most of the time, when a crime happens, they're coming after the fact. So the crime has been committed, we call the police have to get there on time to try and catch that person. But the crime has already been committed. So what do we need to do? We need to stop crime. So police need to learn how to come on our side of the fence. So this is where I stand as a mentor, as a youth worker, as what I do. They need to come over here, learn from us, and kind of put some of those strategies in place as they are doing their policing. So what would that look like? That would look like learning how to engage with the young people on the street, building rapport, building relationship with the young people on the street, taking a young person under the wing. The same as I would say to the guy in Tesco's, the guy in social care, the guy in as a teacher. This is not a government thing. This is not a job thing. This is a humanity thing. This is humanity. These are kids. There's a African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. So what we're saying, everyone is a collective. So the way that, the police will treat the young people, it's just a sign of a falling society, clearly.
When you're speaking to the police, do you feel like they're actually listening to you? Do they take on board what you're saying?
So at Gangsline, they definitely did, because we had a whole, a whole project. Program, should I say. So we had a whole program that took them through a process to get them to the end result after getting all the facts, the statistics, the history, the understanding of everything. And then it kind of points it back in your face. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. I've got something to do with this, because I feel like on the media, they portray something in a way that they would like it to look and seem. But in reality, it's a lot different than what's being portrayed.
How do you think the media are portraying it? How do you see it?
So media portray it as if we have these crazy, delinquent, mad young people on the streets just wanting to kill everybody. And that's not the truth. Because even though deaths are happening, but you got to understand what is fueling the deaths. If someone keeps telling me that someone over there has got a knife, he's got a knife, he's got a knife, he's got a knife, he's got a knife, I'm going to want to go and get a knife to protect myself. Do you see that? Not because I'm a crazy person, I want to kill people, but that's what they're trying to make it out to be, that everyone's crazy and they just want to kill people. No, what has happened is fear mongering. So fear is causing people to now want to protect themselves. When I speak to some police officers, I say to them, hey, do you carry a weapon? Do you carry a weapon? And they say to me, yes. I say, why? Why do you carry a weapon? And they say if they get into something that they can protect themselves. Throughout the ages, we've seen it. Samurai swords, the Romans, swords. Africans, they had spears. So throughout the ages, we've seen even warriors, they used to prize themselves to have their weapon, and it was glorified, if that makes sense. So it's so warped the way that we have articulated what it means now today. The narrative that we've given to what it looks like now. And we see it as, oh, they're murdering, killing kids. And that's not the case.
Do you think schemes like stop and search are fueling tensions? Like how do you feel about stop and search? I think between 2018 and 2021, the Met Police took 9,000 knives off the streets through stop and search. But then there's the flip side of them just searching people who don't have knives, and it creates this tension between communities. How do you think about this policy?
Stop and search. So
Yeah.
stop and search is good. Stop and search is good, but it has to be a wraparound service. It's got to be a wraparound service where all the things that I just spoke about are also implemented. You can't just have stop and search without relationship, because straight away that's going to cause tension between the community. You think that we're just going to let you come and, violate us and stop and search us and handpick us out and make us look like we're something when we're not, yeah. But then you don't want to get to know us. You see? So I believe, that's the problem with that.
Have you mentored young kids and teenagers, and is there one particular success story that really stands out in your head, something you're really proud of?
I've got quite a few. So what we do, so I also do this thing called alternative restorative communities. And what we do is we partner those that are incarcerated with a mentor, and then we put them into like a safe house, but then we continue the mentoring as they're on their release. And we've had so many that have really just completely changed their lives around, and now they're working, doing the mentoring with the young boys that are in the prison. But then also even with girls, I know a lot of people don't speak about this, but there was one girl, she was literally on the brink of killing herself. She was taking MD and she was just going wild, and I've stepped in and started to mentor her, started to build her up, and it's been such a success.
How does that make you feel? Does it give you like a real sense of purpose, a reason to wake up in the morning?
100%. So for me, it's like people on the block that know me, they're like, wow, like you give us hope. Like if you can change, if you can get out of it, then like we got hope. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like I stand as maybe a voice for those people. So and I feel like maybe even a representative of the streets, and even to be able to bridge the gap, because there's such a divide that needs to be crossed.
Would you ever consider a career in politics? Like, would you want to get into a position of power?
100%, 100,000,000%. I feel like politics for me, it's not about me. It's about the people, you see? And I feel like we're missing that. A lot of people are like, oh, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And most of what they're saying that they're going to do is probably to win people over, but it's not actually for the people. My thing would be, let the people run. Let the people run it, kind of thing, if that makes sense. It's like, how do I see it? I got a slogan. My slogan's the best slogan. If 1 billion people put £1 on the table, that's £1 billion. You see, unity, together we are stronger. So when we come together, it's so powerful what we can do. And with just a little, that £1 that we put down on the table, We can do so much, but that's the problem. And this is what they love to do. Fearmonger and division and cause us all to fight against each other so that we never clock that actually we could change everything.
Yeah, when it comes to the fear mongering, who do you hold responsible for that? Do you see one particular person, one news outlet? Who do you hold responsible for the fear mongering that's dividing people?
First and foremost, it's news, the news outlets. They are constantly bombarding us with this type of information, constantly negative. They're constantly putting certain lights on certain communities, people, and so on. They will just show certain things that they want to show consistently, and that's the one there, consistently. You know, if you hear something again and again and again and again, it starts to get ingrained into your mind, and then now you feel like, oh, this is true. This is true. Another one, social media plays a part, but I believe social media is actually cracking it because a lot of the young people are speaking their truth, and people are getting to see that. So there's a counteracting of it. I also believe that the people have a part to play, because Martin Luther King, he said something. He said, it's the inaction of people that could have acted. Do you see that? So there are people out there that could act, but they stay silent. And that allows injustice to continue. Because if you stay silent and say, oh, well, you know, what could I do? You know, it's just me. And that's how a lot of people feel. But I would say it's not just you. If you stand up, another one will stand up, and another one, 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 and another one.
Sephton, you've had a pretty incredible couple of years, well, kind of last 10 years, with advising the Met Police, helping young school kids and teenagers get onto the right track on life. One thing you've been up to is Way Out of Solutions.
Yes, Way Out Solutions.
Guys, a very quick caveat from me. In the next scene, you're about to see Sephton in a mask. I have a couple of words written down here from Sephton, which I'm going to read out on his behalf to give you a little bit of context about the next scene. Okay, the story behind the mask. This mask was adopted by the hacktivist collective Anonymous, a decentralized group known for using hacking and online activism to challenge corrupt power structures, promote freedom of speech, and oppose surveillance and censorship. The Anonymous movement stands for fighting oppression and exposing truths that are hidden or controlled by powerful forces. They believe in challenging systems of authority by any means necessary, often from inside, using the mask to symbolize unity, anonymity, and the idea that the power belongs to the people, not a single face. As Metro Music, my connection to the Anonymous mask reflects a mission of infiltrating environments and cultures to create change from within. My image signifies a commitment to understanding the struggles of the people, immersing myself in their world, and transforming our communities through action. It's about going where others won't and standing up for those who are marginalized or trapped in cycles of oppression, like how the Anonymous movement seeks justice for the voiceless. I embody this mask as a symbol of rebellion against systemic failure, offering hope, solutions, and empowerment for those who most need it. On to the next scene.
Hello everyone, I'm Christine Mitchell. I'm a music promoter, a festival programmer. I work on Thamesmead Festival, which is in Southeast London. I'm on the Festival Advisory Board. But the one thing that I'm passionate about at the moment, apart from the other things, but this is ultra passionate about, is Metro Music. He's sitting right next to me. Now, Way Out Solutions is another part of our organisation, which is, we're a dynamic movement. We intend to help youths and young adults steer away from knife crime. If you know anyone that's involved in that area, then you have an idea of what I'm talking about, how sad it is. And these young people need our help. We want to do it in a way where they feel comfortable. We want to ask them how we can help them, not tell them what we're going to do. So we want to be able to offer them employment, guidance, knowledge, prosperity, success at the end of the day, because they deserve it. I mean, they're our future. And if we can't look after them, then goodness me, the world will just be an end. And I just hope that you will join us at Way Out Solutions. We have industries, we have corporations, we have individuals and communities that are telling us they want to work with us. So we need everyone to work with us, and then it will be a success. So I hope you'll join us. And thank you.
I pre-prepared a few words, and this is what I wanted to say. There is something deeply wrong with society when working families and their children rely on food banks to survive. The government has outsourced its responsibility to meet people's basic needs, forcing the most vulnerable to feed off public scraps. If you think of the most vulnerable people in society and how we treat them, you will get a clear picture of the state we are in as a whole. Complaints that have collected dust turn into rebellion. We spoke, they never listened, so we made our own world, said the gang member. No justice created injustice.
Sephton, it's been an absolute pleasure doing this interview with you. You've really turned your life around, and the work you're doing is beyond incredible. You're having a real impact in your community, and I've spoken to a couple of people who have had similar backgrounds to you, and I always say the same thing. Young kids, teenagers in London, they need positive role models in their life. Teenagers don't look up to people who are in suits in Westminster. They look up to people like you. So thank you.
Thank you.